Is sales the overlooked training that we really just don't do enough of within the industry?
I mean, do we do any training? Yes, I think I'm just like, uh,
Just get me in
it's
trouble.
a loaded question.
It wasn't that loaded. On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk Vanco's supply chain, stop selling products, and ProSource adds sales training. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 391. Pay attention. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is the weekly roundup of your latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, we have Mr. Seth Johnson. He is a software development manager over at Blackwire. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing great. Even better since you're wearing your shirt.
The Florida man shirt.
The Florida man shirt, not just
it even has
shirt.
An alligator on it. Like, how much more stereotypical can it be?
I love it. Then we've got Chad Russell. He's the director of sales for residential over at Amatech. How you doing, Chad?
Doing well. Thanks for having me today. Good to see you.
Oh, thank you for being here. All right, gentlemen, let's kick this right off with the story that will not die. Supply chain issues. This is a really good Q&A from CE Pro with the president of Vanco, Mark Corbin, going over kind of some of the things that that Vanco and Beale Street and Pulse and Evolution, those companies underneath Vanco, did throughout the pandemic and the supply chain aspect of that to try and do everything they could to maintain not only the Quest for Quality awards that they continually win, but also obviously to try and keep their dealers happy and out there in the field able to work, supplying them with product. Seth, let me start with you on this. It's a great little interview, and again, Mark hits on all of the things that we would expect him to hit on, right? Is there anything in here that stood out to you also kind of as a distributor that they did that you guys maybe in hindsight wish you had or wish the industry had? Or is there anything out there that you guys did that you didn't see mentioned here?
I think one of the last things you talked about was not having a crystal ball and not predicting any of this. So it was a weird time. I mean, we were kind of coming off the point. I think there were some trade issues that came up, and then there were like tariffs that got introduced. It was all a mess anyway, and then all of a sudden we get hit with a pandemic. So it just kind of like snowballed into this thing that everybody was just kind of sitting around and caught squarely on their heels with. And I thought it was interesting how I think it's always interesting to hear how manufacturers in particular reacted to this, because we were seeing it as like, well, we just can't buy something, or if we see like 150 of something come in, we'll just buy them all up as fast as we can. But from the manufacturer standpoint, they're kind of doing the same thing, but with little parts and pieces, right? They're in here. He was saying how they purchased a bunch of, their chips or some chipsets or something they needed to make all their products. So they'd have like a 6-month supply, and they also had higher levels of inventory than they had in the past, which I kind of thought was interesting, because if we remember in the before times, like everything we were doing was like a just-in-time delivery, right? Like everything we had to do was like, oh, I need this, I'll just get it tomorrow off Amazon, or I'll just have it shipped from China and it'll be here in like 2 days. It's like, it's amazing how like susceptible to any little bump in the road that just in time, not that like the entire pandemic was a bump in the road, but like how something like that kind of like just threw that entire system out the window. And now we're holding on to stock. Now we're holding on to levels that we did not have pre-pandemic.
Yeah, that's a good point. Chad, how does this play out? Has this played out? Are we still dealing with this? How do integrators or manufacturers, for that matter, move forward with this? Right? Like, I feel like we've talked about this to death, but at the same time, as we alluded to ahead of the show, and heck, I didn't even think about it. I'm leaving as soon as we're done this to go to retail to pick up a TV because we can't wait any longer on one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that our industry is, residential in particular is terrible at giving realistic forecasts to manufacturers. I think that we don't give any sort of insight to our manufacturer partners in terms of pipeline, what we have going, where it is, what's going on. I know that D-Tools and whatnot has been working on trying to get better visibility on that. They've got some resources in there, and they've talked about that at some of the buying group trade shows that we've been to. But I think that really if you can give any sort of better timeline and just get your orders in sooner, but that just doesn't seem to happen. And of course, there's always that thing that happens on every project. Yeah, let's go ahead and finish the backyard. Yeah, let's add the game room. Let's do this. And so we're always going to have those sorts of issues. But I think that the way that the integrator can help is to try to get better visibility on projects that they have forthcoming. Because most integrators know, come on, guys, you guys know that you closed this project 18 months ago. And now you're getting all your ducks in a row. You've gone through the pre-wire, you've gotten through the trim. You know that your final is going to get bumped out there a little bit, but when these orders do come in and they say they need it in 3 weeks, sometimes that's tough. And when the perfect storm comes on us as a manufacturer, it's happened to us in a few situations. We've been able to kind of shift things around. And, for us on the SurgeX side, we are in a situation where you're going to start seeing all of that go away because we've gone and forecasted aggressively. But of course, then we go out, sales teams hit the streets, we start getting more stuff in, and then we're going to go through that inventory, and we'll probably be back in the situation again without better foresight coming in from the integrator side.
Yeah, that's a really good point. All right, gentlemen, let's change topics for a second. This comes to us from Residential Systems. Stop selling products from Katie McGregor Bennett, a good friend of the show. You're probably initially thinking, well, yeah, of course not. That being said, we still do this all the time. We continually go through the process of selling products and boxes opposed to experiences, no matter how many times we hear about it. Katie covers some really good points in trying to drive that conversation, though, from the get-go, even before they walk in the door. Chad, let me start with you on this. Is it easier to sell, an actual experience? Is it easier to sell a product? I fully understand this question, right? And this article and the desire to sell an experience opposed to a box. But at the same time, it is easier said than done.
Well, I think there's a few things where you've kind of seen the migration away from these large experience-based locations, these destination points, where the consumer used to go, learn about things, see it, look at it, sit down, and you have that opportunity to give a real demo. And it's moved really to the core of our channel, which is that conference room sale where you're sitting down, you're building it all. And so a lot of integrators don't really have that. You're starting to see a resurgence of it through some rep firms and even some distributors building these cool rooms and such. But I guess the real thing is, how do you get that experience back in front of the consumer to make them want that? And I think that there needs to be an investment by our guys. And that's kind of a struggle sometimes to get their showroom or office. Let's say it's not even a showroom, it's an office, and turn that into an experiential area. And, oftentimes, how do you have that Ferrari experience in a Volkswagen environment as well, right? And so I think that Katie did bring up some really good points in there. And I think that for the most part, the industry is doing a good job on really differentiating and not trying to sell the boxes. I kind of look back, and I do the same thing. I mean, it's a great article and it goes through all the things that you're supposed to do. But I think that really the integrator needs to find ways to get people in front of them. That's where I used to excel in selling the large scale projects and the large scale theaters and that better projector, the better everything. is you need to be able to differentiate it. People need to sit down and do exactly what Katie talks about, and that's feel, touch, and experience it. So it's kind of the challenge, in my opinion.
Seth, let me ask you this, because I think this is the forgotten aspect of this conversation, or anytime this conversation comes up. It's not just the integrator that's involved in this, right? You also have whoever you're selling to. And so often that client, they kind of just want to talk about the box, whether it's the TV, whether it's the projector, whether it's, heck, the golf simulation room. They just want to talk about the box. They don't want to have that, for lack of a better term, that flowery conversation about how nice will it be when you walk into the simulator and a single light is glowing on the tee box. They don't care. They want to talk about the foresight for the swing monitor. That's what they want to talk about. How do you get away from selling the box when that's what the client wants to talk about?
Yeah, I think it just this all kind of goes back to the basics. It's excelling the experience, excelling and selling the solutions, right? So for that box to be part of the whole solution of a golf simulator, like you're going to have wire run from point A to point B. You're going to have some of those. I'm not sure with that one, but you have to have special lighting, right? You have to have all sorts of, I'm rusty on golf sims right now, but like you have to, you have to have certain elements built into the room that aren't normal. And to have just a single conversation about one particular box in the room, I guess some people do get hung up on that. Typically it's TVs, right? The TV or the projector. Though, and those kind of things, it is a sit down and you have to show it situation. It's funny, we're having this conversation. We just wrapped up on another, like, it's like I was a guest on another podcast, and we wrapped up this kind of theater build for a consumer, and we had some CDA guys on, we had myself, and we were just kind of going back and forth, and he was dead set on getting a particular Sony projector, like, and the expert, Owen Maddock of Cinema Works over in the UK, he was saying, hey, for the distance and the screen size, you're probably going to want to end up with the bigger Sony projector. And there's a big difference. We know the two Sony projectors we're talking about. He had to go see it. And once he saw it, it was, yeah, you're going to cry once on that price. But he ended up getting the bigger projector because he needed it. But it was a matter of seeing it and getting in there and figuring out, like, if you're not demoing what you're trying to sell, people they don't have that experience in their day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. So if you're not demoing the high-end Sony with a nice sound system, people aren't going to experience that anywhere else. They're not going to understand what you're talking about. They have no relation to the product that they're talking about and see the specs on the website to the experience or the solution that you're going to provide.
So what I'm hearing is bring back showrooms.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's got to be some way of doing it, right? Like there's I don't know of a way of of putting somebody into a theater situation and like, okay, pretend to be wild. I'm gonna show you a series of pictures on my iPad here. Like, I just don't know of another way to do it. A demo showroom does go a long way to get people to cross that line that they may not want to cross.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I ever really sold too many of the $600,000 or $700,000 solution I presented, but what I sold a lot of was the $75,000 or $100,000 solution.
Yep.
And so you got to still have best in class and go for it. And I'm all for it. That also is what kind of gets that whole group of new people interested in this industry as well. So
yeah, that's a really big point. All right, gentlemen, let's change topics again. This comes to us from Residential Tech Today and a good friend of the show, Jeremy Glowacki. ProSource introduces a sales playbook and training pathway for the CI channel. It was specifically designed to help onboard junior salespeople and industry outsiders through their own ProSource University to not only help their members attract and retain some sales talent. Read through the article, and you can even link to the sales playbook there. I think you can buy it by itself, but if you're a member, it's available when you log in. Very, very cool. Seth, let me start with you on this one. Is sales the overlooked training that we really just don't do enough of within the industry?
Yeah, I mean, do we do any training? Yeah, yes, I think I'm just like,
Just get me
it's
in
a
trouble.
loaded question. I know.
It wasn't
I'm sorry.
that loaded.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, when we're excited about going to a manufacturer's training, or you're going into some kind of like a rep training or something like that, and looking over to the new products, you're looking at all the bells and whistles and all the specs and all that kind of thing. So yeah, learning how to actually turn those specs and numbers that we care about into the products, experiences, and solutions that the consumer is going to care about is definitely overlooked. And I think it's something that you kind of, at least I kind of didn't have any formal training on. Some basics, I had the basics back from the retail days with Circuit City back then, before that caught on fire. But the basics, the basics only get you so far. And especially when you stop dealing with, the people that, like me, who would walk into Circuit City and start dealing with higher end clients that have different preferences and motivations to buying what they want to buy. So yeah, I absolutely think that this is a great idea to have just a basic sales training. I always wondered how you would do this. Like, how do you bring in people that have may not even know what an access point is, and get them to sell a networking system? Like, how do you do that? So this is a great idea. I hope to see more of it and see more, more things like that pop up in the industry. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Chad, I'm incredibly happy that you're here because you are a national sales director. How often, when we talk about sales in the industry, right, how often is that conversation focused on the sales points, if you will, of that product or that manufacturer or that line, opposed to actual, like, hey, here's how you sell to someone, here's how you connect with someone and get to the point where you can go ahead and actually ask for that sale?
So that's okay. So when I came into the industry, I was part of something in high school that was kind of like gave you some foundational pieces in that. But then I was like kind of going through this. My first, similar to you, Seth, I came into this from a big box mover. It was Incredible Universe. And so it was like I was a division of Tandy Corporation, and we were part of this whole process of opening the store. And for the first 2 weeks, they gave us, the first week was actual sales training in terms of qualifications, going through and every step of the way on how to engage in conversation, how to find out why they're there, how to apply that to their needs, and then go through needs analysis and get through all of that and find the solution, and then ask for the sale. That was the first week. Then it was sales training. And then we went through all of the sales training on all the products and all of this. And then you blended all that together and made a whole thing. And then over the years, what's happened is now that I've kind of gone through and applied those principles for many years, and then now I take this, as you said, into a national sales piece. Now what I do is I kind of try to blend all that together. And the only thing that really matters to me is the sales training side, because if someone's excited about it, they'll be able to articulate it and explain it and kind of go through that process. But you're right. Are we as an industry giving those foundational philosophies and understandings to the salespeople as they move through? Or, some of the best integrators out there have absolutely no sales training, and they only go in and I think they miss a lot of sales opportunities. But on the same note, they have client retention forever, and they sell things that fundamentally work in the field, and they don't have problems installing it, because you get into a sales situation where your sales guy took some creative liberties, as I like to call them, and said, oh yeah, we can do that. Oh yeah. And it's like some of the best things you can ever say. And the thing that I don't think anybody teaches, and you have to lose some things in order to learn this, and that is learning when to say no to your client. We can't do that. And because, you get excited, someone's spending a bunch of money, it's your first big project, you want to do this, you don't want to tell your client no because you don't want to lose them. But sometimes the best thing you can do for your client is tell them why they shouldn't do that, and tell them why you should do it this other way. And I think that it's a delicate dance of all of the fundamental pieces. And it's like, where does it start? And I hope that this ProSource piece is a good foundational piece for these new salespeople to understand that, and then turn it over to us for the other things. And then maybe my training should incorporate a little bit more of that other stuff that we're just talking about. Maybe that's a missed opportunity, so.
I had I should say I have a client who is a national sales director for a multinational IT company. And he's their VAR sales director. So he goes and sells to the big IT firms and sales companies that everyone would know if I mentioned them. And when I met him years and years and years ago, we sat down, I'm going through my pitch. I'm losing my microphone. But I'm going through my pitch. And going through my pitch, he's sitting there, he's smiling, just being super friendly, and took it out, took the quote, signed it. We did the project. We're wrapping up. I'm shaking hands with him, a couple days after that. And I'm very green in it. And he looks at me and he goes, listen, we're going to go to lunch. I'm like, okay, cool. Sure. When do you want to go? And I'm not picking up at all. And he goes, and I'm going to teach you some sales stuff because I bought from you because I like you, but you are a terrible salesman and no one will buy from you. And I just did I'm sorry, what? And we go, and not that I thought I was great, but I didn't think I was that bad. Long and short, we go to lunch and he hands me this book, and I'm trying to remember what it's called and I can't, but if I find it, I'll post about it. But he hands me this book. He's like, all right, we're going to go to lunch a week from now. Go read the book, come back and we'll talk. And I'm like, this is the weird, you're my client. What is going on? Long and short, go home, read the book, come back, sit down, and he starts essentially training me how to sell. And we worked through it, and he's still a really good friend of mine now. But we had this one specific conversation where he goes, anybody can learn specs and things and stuff about what you're selling. That's not hard. Anybody can learn about a vehicle if they want to sell a vehicle, but they can't necessarily relate to you and then have you go, yeah, I want to buy from you. And that was in our company, that was the big turning point for me, was learning a little bit on how to actually sell. And it's not necessarily as dirty as a lot of people try to make that industry out to be, as far as the salesman industry. But it's crazy to me that every sales meeting I've ever been in, whether it's one-on-one with a rep or at an expo or at anything else, it's very focused. It's always extremely focused just on the vendor's product. So the kind of the last question I wanted to ask both of you, one of you, whatever, we continually hear in the industry that we have to learn how to not speak text so much, right? Because someone will ask you about a projector that they want, and you will get into color space calculations, right? Typically, that's where that goes. Have we done this to ourselves as a channel? And is there a way forward?
I don't know if it's what we've done for as a channel. I think it's just something that we gravitate to because that's the way our minds work, and we're thinking about that stuff. We want to know that the number 4 in the 4K is bigger than 1080p, and our clients aren't going to understand that 1080 is bigger than 4. How does that work? And then you got 4K, 8K. We want to know the bigger numbers. We got Wi-Fi 5, we've got Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 7's around the corner. That's on us. We like that stuff. We like all those technical details. Our clients, they don't care. They just want this stuff to work. And they want it to be reliable for use in their everyday life. And when it breaks, they want to have somebody to call and yell at or have it fixed and that kind of stuff. And we've done a little bit of that to ourselves, but it's something you can easily break out of. If you just remember, the client doesn't need or want to know all that. And if they do, you have that information readily available. It's right in your back pocket, right? Pull it out and start talking. But most of the times they're not looking to know the difference between 1080p and 4K. They don't care. They just want to have a nice, beautiful picture, and it's got to look better than the neighbors.
Yeah, it's true. I'm with you there. It's I think that, can we do it? Yeah, just quit talking about that stuff and start trying to be not necessarily their friend, but just ask the questions of what they want, get to understand budgets, get to understand exactly what they're listening, and pay attention. I had actually one of the CEOs of Kroger at one point. He was buying some $20 million house in Aspen, and this is a house that I'd put about $300K worth of infrastructure in for lighting, shades, and hardly any AV. And I knew from his interior designer that they're putting in a $500,000 fixture and the foyer and all this. And so I'm going through with my proposals, talking to him about what it is. And I ended up not getting the project. And at the end of it, I asked him why I didn't. And he shot me back a really lengthy email. But in summary, what it said was I didn't listen to what he was saying. And, it was valuable. It was invaluable to me that he took the time to tell me that. And, there's a lot of things, through my career that I've learned from. And, it's one of those things that, they don't care. Know your audience, pay attention. If they're glazing over, they're glazing over because you're not talking about what's relevant to them. Stay in the feel good area about the experiences and, how you can build on that. Right. So I think that, ultimately there's some interesting things, and it's, the other thing, that when you're speaking earlier, on the previous question, one thing that popped into my head was that when your client took you out and talked about the sales stuff, one of my clients, I was sitting there at the final. It was my first big project. It was only like a $100K project. It was like my first big thing, graduating college and going into doing this stuff in Arizona. And I'm going through it, and he pops down this proposal on his coffee table. And of course the ticker's up, and we're doing the final on what I thought was the greatest system ever. And he's like, I just think I have to do it. And it's for my Aspen house. And I'm like, oh, okay. I open it up, and of course, Dave Rafe, Paragon, open it up, front page, $495,000. And I'm like, what did I miss? It's like, I just all of a sudden just dawned on me how bad I was at this. Right. And it's when I kind of similar to your situation where your client took you out. My client didn't take me out to lunch. He plopped down the information in front of me. I opened the front page and realized I was an idiot, which was great. So it changed my whole perspective. And I think that, there's a lot for all of us to learn every day, and just pay attention and know things and continue to evolve. And, this is a good conversation for me too. I need to evolve and maybe not talk about my products as much, maybe get into the stuff you're talking about.
No, I'm sure you're fine. All right, let's wrap it there. Thank you both so much. Chad, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Amatec, where can they do that? chad.russell@amatec.com. And you can reach out to me anytime, and I'll respond as quickly as possible. Excellent. Thank you, sir. Mr. Johnson, thank you for joining us. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Blackwire design, where can they do that?
You can check us out at blackwiredesigns.com, and we'll be at CEDIA this year, booth 4304. Yay.
Excellent. All right, gentlemen, thank you again for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter and most other social platforms. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time for this episode of ResiWeek.